Welcome to The Leak. I'm Anthony McCormack.
I'm Jacqueline Nipsad.
I'm Pat McCaffrey.
And I'm Lauren Bock.
They're the three smartest people we could find to bring you the news you're not supposed to know. Like this story. Aussie lingerie store Honey Burdette is under fire from former employees for its policies encouraging staff to wear high heels, pout at customers, and use phrases like "spank me if I'm wrong."
Well, spank me if I'm wrong, Anthony, or any time you see fit. But apparently the store's dress code for their honeys is to wear lace, satin, chiffon, and to think 50s glam at all times.
Yeah, apparently they're encouraged to think 50s all the time, every day.
Australian entrepreneur Dick Smith has endorsed Pauline Hanson and offered to advise her ahead of the next election.
Because if there's one person who knows how to be a dick...
It's Pauline Hanson. Shit is Aussie, mate.
First time in Australia, IKEA is now offering home delivery in Canberra.
Finally, a reason to move to Canberra.
IKEA home delivery also includes their famous meatballs.
Careful though, there is some self-assembly required in that I tried ordering that and they just sent me a whole cow and a bottle of tomato sauce.
It's terrifying. In a newsletter to constituents, Energy Minister Josh Frydenberg has spruiked the benefits of Tony Abbott's Green Army despite reports it'll be abolished in 2 weeks.
Turnbull, though, gave no comment when asked whether he was concerned that in that newsletter, Frydenberg had also spruiked the benefits of Malcolm Turnbull's leadership.
And Frydenberg was actually unable to comment because he's recently been sent to Antarctica. It is actually unclear whether or not that's a ministerial visit or just Malcolm Turnbull's idea of a Christmas present to himself.
Carlton United Breweries has struck a deal with workers at its Abbotsford plant, which should put an end to boycotts of its products.
So now we can all go back to drinking delicious VB.
Drinking VB? Oh, they need more money. Strike, strike, strike.
Strike. A study done in San Francisco has revealed that people that are extreme groomers are 4 times more likely to contract sexually transmitted infections.
They're also 4 times more likely to be having any sex, though.
Well, hey.
Or 4 times more likely to be having unprotected sex. That information is less hair-raising and more hair-raising.
Yeah, and I've heard the extreme grooming has actually taken off in San Francisco. It's spreading very quickly down south. Next stop is Brazil.
Como estás? Speaking of grooming, under a new proposal in Victoria, adults will face harsher jail times for grooming children to commit crimes, calling it Fagan's Law.
Rejected proposal names include Moriarty's Law, Billy the Kid's Law, and Law of Jack the Ripper's Little Nippers.
Those are our headlines for the week. Now to look at something in a little more detail.
Hi guys, it's Dr. Pam. Sorry I'm in amazing Canada right now, but I've got some ideas I'd like you to think about while I'm gone. This is Luke. Luke's gonna help me do that. Aren't you, Luke? Yeah, you are. Come on, let's go. Just close that. Yep, come on. You don't need your other things. Luke tried to get away from me, but I was really passionate about sharing with him the 3 Ps. Plastics, palm oil, and putting down your phones.
Plastics hurting your penis, Luke.
Chemicals leaching from plastics have been linked to genital abnormalities, like increased taint length, which doesn't sound like a bad thing, but just think about sitting on the toilet with your legs in the air. And also, smaller penises, specifically thinner, which is weird. And for adults, it means decreased quality of sperm and lower testosterone. In fact, plastic is hurting a lot of penises, Luke.
Do you know Doritos are really bad for the environment?
Most of our palm oil comes from unsustainable farming throughout Southeast Asia. It's causing massive amounts of habitat destruction. We use a ton of palm oil, and it's in everything, and it's known by many names. If you want to do better for the environment, try to avoid these products and these ingredients. And you never see a successful person eating Doritos. You see? And anything tastes better than dead orangutans.
Hi. Did you know light from your phone is actually bad for you?
Blue light from devices like your phone or your laptop go into your eyes and stimulate your brain into thinking it's awake. This messes up your melatonin production, your sleep hormone, so the quality of your sleep suffers. In the long term, it has been associated with obesity, cancer, and diabetes. So get yourself a program that naturally warms up the color of your screen throughout the day. I like your sheets, Luke. That's it for this week. Anyway, I'm off to Canada. Think about what I said and try to have a happy holiday. Bye.
I'm Jacqueline Mifsud. Now, the holiday season is approaching, and regardless of whether you're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, or the birthday of Muhammad or Zenu, one thing's for sure. You're going to have to endure your auntie or uncle nosy McJudgy pants. You know that one, the relative that you only see once a year but criticises every single choice you've made over the last 364 days. And most of us already have a negative voice in our heads attacking everything we do and makes us feel like we're already falling behind. Mine's a soccer mum who yells sports slogans at me like, pull your socks up and get the fridge off, and I'm still very unclear to what that means. And you work hard on quietening that inner critic, and then there they are, personified, sitting across from you at the table, fingering the potato salad. Oh, what's this green shit? It's parsley, dickhead. And these rabid relatives, they don't want to hear your argument about how success can be interpreted in many ways, and that just because you don't have a partner or aren't incubating semen right now doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. I put mine in the bin though, heads up. Whoop! It doesn't matter how many personal goals you're nailing, like how you've overcome your fear of pigeons or how you no longer cry when you burn toast. If you're not working your way through the big book of social norms, you're a huge failure. Because your reckless rallies measure success on the job you have rather than the person you are or the skills you possess. Like whether or not you like poaching eggs. It's very difficult. Do not overdo the vinegar. And you know what? You can be academically successful and still empty on the inside. Can't you, sad Batman? And hell, these days you can even become president of one of the most powerful countries in the world and still be a heartless fanny whistle. It's unfair to judge others based on your own set of values, but unless you're writing a monologue about it, of course. But if you're awaiting exam results right now as well, remember, No piece of paper can dictate who you are, except maybe your birth certificate or your passport. My point is, you don't have to make decisions right now. Like life, anything can happen that you can't predict, like love and heartbreak and travel and passion and love again and heartbreak and career change and softcore porn. Or getting fired for that thing you did at the Christmas party. And let's not forget love and heartbreak. And it's hard to know what you want to do when you don't even know who you are or you haven't probably experienced the world around you yet. And it's even harder when you're surrounded by people who are yelling unwanted and unhelpful opinions at you. What, you mean you haven't bought a house and land package yet? Not even in Caroline Springs? You'll end up living alone till you're 40 like that Pat McGaffrey fellow. Ding, ding. Stop him. Choose your own path. If you find yourself having to justify your existence this holiday season, then you take that big book of social norms, you add your own secret herbs and spices, and you stuff it up Nosy McJudgy Pants' ass. Happy holidays.
Well, pill testing. It's something I know nothing about, Your Honour. We sent Pat to find out more.
So summer in Australia means three things: Golden Gay Times, cold beer, and children going missing from beaches in Adelaide in the 1960s. But it also means people going to music festivals. And that means people trying to sneak pills into those music festivals so that they can really enjoy LCD Sound System or Linda Ronstadt or some other young person's musician that they like. But with 6 drug-related deaths in the last 12 months, people are starting to wonder whether there's a safer way for people to enjoy themselves. And one possible answer is to offer pill testing. And look, I'm probably not the best person to be talking about this, in that the last concert I went to was Simon and Garfunkel, and I do not like sleeping in tents. And anyway, if this music was any good, I would have heard about it on ABC Classic FM or Radio National by now. Hugh, can you bring in some more sherry? Vivaldi's about to start. To be clear, I'm not even into drugs at all either. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't have any problem with them. I'm all for legalizing it, man. It's just that I'm not really cool enough to take them. You know, I feel like if I took drugs, that would put an end to the drug culture. And I don't really want to spoil people's fun. But what exactly is pill testing? Well, what happens is you're at a festival, you wake up with a hurricane of a hangover, crawl out of your tent, get to the scientists, they take a fraction of the pill, run a test, and tell you whether what you're taking is pure MDMA or a poisonous mix of battery acid and Chris Kenny's Twitter feed. And while you're waiting for your pills to get tested, they pump you full of information about how to take drugs safely. It already happens in some countries in Europe, including Austria, where since the introduction of pill testing, drug consumption has actually fallen, and 2/3 of users who were told their drugs were dangerous then elected not to take them. And they then warned their friends not to take them as well. So now experts like Alex Wodak from the Australian Drug Law Reform Foundation, Will Tregoning from Unharm, and Dr. David Caldecott have announced that they are going to offer pill testing at upcoming music festivals in Australia. So that's all a good thing, right? Well, not according to some politicians and police. New South Wales Premier Mike Baird says his government would not use taxpayer-funded dollars supporting illegal drug deals, while Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews says he doesn't support drug testing trials at all. And it's worth asking whether the current strategies are actually helpful. While they're very common, research shows sniffer dogs are unreliable 75% of the time. And even when they are reliable, their mere presence tends to make drug users panic. They then take all their drugs at once, which obviously creates a risk of overdosing. And why Wodak and Caldecott say they'll offer drug testing? It's not clear they're legally safe to do so. In fact, while I might get charged with possession of the illegal drug, the drug tester might get charged with supplying an illegal drug when they hand it back to me, which seems pretty ridiculous. So come on, Australia, pill testing's where it's at. All the cool kids are doing pill testing, right? Austria's doing pill testing, and everyone thinks Austria's cool. Despite the whole being the birthplace of Hitler thing. So come with me. I'll show you how pill testing works, right? I'll show you how to do pill testing properly. Just come with me, come with me. It'll be great. Pill testing's awesome. Just come with me. The cool kids are doing it. Come with me, right? Come on.
Not go in there. FLUX is a political party all about giving power back to us, the people, via a simple app that allows users to vote on every single piece of legislation. We spoke to Nathan Spataro, co-founder of the party, and we started by asking Nathan if there are any restrictions on who could download and use the app.
There are some restrictions. So in order to be able to use the app, at least from a legislative point of view, if you want to participate on voting on legislation, you need to be an Australian voter, a registered Australian voter.
Is there any way around that whatsoever? I can't weasel my way in.
always weird.
No, you can't. You need to be registered against the Australian Electoral Commission's role in order to sign up for an account.
You can also, sorry, Pat, you can also allocate your vote to someone else, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. This is one of the really important parts of Flux. It's not a fundamentalist direct democracy. One of the features is that we allow you to defer your vote to someone else. We recognise that we all have people in our lives that we would trust with a political decision. I'm sure if we all think about it, you could think of a handful of people that you might trust with those kinds of decisions. So yeah, absolutely, we allow vote delegation. And really, the next step from that is vote trading. This is something that's quite novel to our system, but the ability to let some people handle some issues without you ever even needing to consider it all is another really important feature of our system.
Isn't that what a politician does, though? Like, if they're handling it, isn't that their job in the first place?
Sorry, I missed the first part of that question. Yeah.
Or you're saying someone else can handle it for you if you give your vote away, but is it essentially that's the role of the politician?
Isn't that the role of a politician? Well, okay, so this is a really good question. So what is the role of a politician? Is the role of a politician to make really, really good legislation that's in the interest of all the people? I would argue, and I think a lot of people would today as well, that in some cases the role of a politician is to get elected. And that's what we tend to see during election time, is that politicians will say just about anything to win a seat, and come time to get things done, that tends to change a lot of things that they've said. The reason that the vote trading is really, really important in our system is that we recognise that some of us are really, really good at some things. And as human society progresses, we become more highly specialised. And the more highly specialised we become, the less necessarily all of us know about everything, right? So we need a system that simply fosters the best and brightest of us in each field to participate without necessarily needing people who are career electionists trying to be elected.
Well, in fact, I mean, there's actually not a lot to say that your system would actually end up fostering any kind of expertise. But in terms of going back to the system in place, are you at all worried about sort of a gaming of that system, in that what's to stop me signing up for your app, signing up thousands of my mates who then give their vote to me? They're all Greens voters, and all of a sudden your one FLUX Party senator who holds the balance of power is being influenced on issues by thousands of me and my Greens voting friends?
That is a great question. There's absolutely nothing to stop that. In fact, that's an adoption mechanism.
Isn't that a concern?
No, not at all. Okay, let's look at it from this point of view. If we're successful, okay, let's say we get a senator up. That's one senator. This senator isn't about to turn around the entire course of Australian political history.
Well, they might. I mean, senators have a lot of important legislation to vote on, and if they're a crossbench senator, then yeah, they'd be in a very important position.
Okay, so let's assume for a moment they are a crossbench senator. Let's assume for a moment they actually can. In fact, this is an even better situation. If they actually can affect the outcome of the decision, it's even better, right? Because now their power is really highly sought after. And when you have a system that's necessarily going to let everyone participate, if you're bringing all your Greens pals in and then they're all giving their vote to you, it demands that people from another persuasion become involved in the system. So from our point of view, this is excellent. Our objective is to involve as many Australians as possible in the system. And if that means that we do that by one group perhaps having a particular say in the Flux system, that forces other people to get involved. That's exactly what we want.
Yeah, but it's just a massive example of horse trading then. You just have one person signing up. It's like branch stacking on a grand scale for the vote of an important senator.
Nathan, let's say, for argument's sake, I have $1 billion. What is to stop me basically running the country?
Okay, so in that event, it becomes very, very hard under a Flux system with money to control all legislation for a very long period of time. So right now, when a parliament gets elected, they're there for 3 years, senators are there for 6 years, and there are very few people then that you need to talk to, financially speaking, to have legislation put through. When you involve 24 million people, that's not like 17 million people if we say electors, that's like a lot of people to try and bribe. So it becomes a lot more difficult. Now, when you take into consideration that, if you try and pay off a bunch of people for passing one piece of legislation, and that legislation has to stand the test of time, because when you don't have a system where these people are up for election in 3 years, but in fact legislation can be changed very, very quickly, trying to maintain that legislative position with money becomes extremely expensive. Far more expensive than it is to do with money now.
Nathan, it's a fascinating experiment, and we look forward to following along with the story as it develops. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
We have to take a break. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. You're watching The Leak.
So it's official. The Oxford English Dictionary has declared post-truth its 2016 word of the year. Post-truth refers to a situation where facts are less relevant to public debate than emotional beliefs, which, after Trump, Brexit and the return of One Nation, seems almost unbelievably true. The OED says that post-truth has increased in usage by 2,000% in the past year. Though given we're now in a post-truth era, I'm not sold it's actually 2,000%. I believe it's probably only 2,000% amongst illegal immigrants and poor people.
Well, I mean, last year the dictionary went with the face with tears of joy emoji. So if their word of the year is an actual word this year, I think that's a step up.
I love that you're the emoji expert. But I think Trump's the best example because no matter how many times he was corrected, he just kept saying shit until people believed him.
Yeah, and he's corrected by some very influential people like Democrats, Republicans, journalists, fact-checkers, and Beyonce.
Florists.
Especially florists, and it didn't make any difference. People still voted for him.
Is social media to blame? Because I'm blaming social media. I just want to know if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a very popular choice. I mean, remember the good old days when we can just absolutely, definitely, completely trust newspapers to decide what we needed to know and what was the real truth.
Well, I mean, though, social media does actually allow anyone to post, what is essentially nonsense. Even though it might not be true, it can then become news.
Because if it gets retweeted enough times, then the media picks up on it and they report it even if it's not true.
I mean, once upon a time, people used facts to manipulate us, and now it's just pure manipulation, no facts needed or whatsoever.
Pure manipulation. Beg your pardon, bless you. The US election is the best example as well. Like, there was so many fake stories on Facebook, and that one how a Democratic staffer was shot, and then everyone was blaming Clinton, saying, "Oh, she killed her," so that he wouldn't testify against her by the FBI. Like, it just
Yeah. And that wasn't true.
No, it wasn't, Anthony.
I have some tweets to delete.
Well, and I suppose because more and more people get their news now from Facebook and Twitter, the concern is that a site like Facebook tends to prioritize stories that get engagement rather than things that are necessarily true.
Yeah, which is why Revealed How Trump Confirmed Obama Secretly a Kenyan always ends up at the top of your feed.
And the thing is, I think people are just doing it deliberately now. Like, I was reading, there's an 18-year-old guy in Macedonia, and he runs a fake news site. And the question about it is like, I don't see anything wrong with this. It makes me money. Yeah, it's fair enough.
Fake news makes real money. And if we can't trust Macedonian teenagers, I don't know who to trust anymore.
Although, on the other hand, I mean, social media can be a good way to get news. I mean, I was reading, interestingly, on Twitter recently, a good breakdown of what went on with that call between the Taiwanese president and Trump and what went, how that went down.
Yeah, which is a little worrying because China does have missiles that are pointed directly at Taiwan.
Yeah, that set off a broader crisis.
It did,
North Korea sent soldiers to the front lines to the border of South Korea.
And then South Korea started playing music over the border into North Korea.
Yeah, the song most played was Lionel Richie's Hello.
Yeah, it just got bigger because then Japan threatened to invade North Korea.
Yeah, and when they started using vultures to drop off scrambled eggs all over Pyongyang.
And then definitely Kim Jong-un passed a law banning scrambled eggs all through North Korea.
It did, which led to calls right here in Australia, our own backyard, by baby boomers that threatened to cancel scrambled eggs and the concept of brunch altogether in order for millennials to buy houses. Definitely, absolutely happens. Yes.
Gosh,
don't fact check that at all.
It is crazy how fast the news moves these days.
You guys are idiots.
Well, that takes us to the end of the show if you're watching us on Channel 31. God bless you, lovely people. But log in online, because we still have a whole rest of the show to go. Facebook.com/TheLeakLive. We're now streaming live.
So switch over now. And moving on, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But what about those of us who can't afford apples?
We often think of sickness as punishment for something. Heart disease, too many burgers, pay the fine. Skin cancer, cover up, pay the fine. A few years ago, I went blind in one eye. On Monday, my doctor told me
you have multiple sclerosis.
I didn't have health insurance. I hadn't done anything wrong. And yet, I had to pay the fine.
So notionally, the doctor's bill was $50. You take it down to Medicare and you get $30. You're essentially $20 out of pocket. In some cases, the doctor will accept the patient rebate as full payment for the service, i.e., the doctor will bulk bill.
Why is it called bulk billing? Because it sounds like I'm buying a whole heap of doctor visits at once.
Bulk billing probably has its origins in the fact that batches of claims were put in at the end of the day in bulk.
The government of the day has put a freeze on patient rebates. What does that even mean?
The rebate is really tied to the cost of providing the service. The out-of-pocket expense is going up year on year on year, and so the patient is footing that component. And patient rebates from Medicare bear no resemblance to the cost of providing that care.
If I have a pre-existing condition, does that mean that it's more expensive for me to get health insurance?
No.
Is anyone in Australia uninsurable?
I think there's a lot of misconceptions that we have from watching American TV. If you have access to Medicare, you can have private health insurance.
On Friday, my doctor rang me back and said, false alarm, you don't have multiple sclerosis after all. I still had to have costly MRIs, just in case, for the MS I didn't have. And even though they were bulk billed, if I wanted the results, I had to pay. I was just wondering if I could get those results over the phone. Did you need me to come in?
Oh, no, your results are fine, but look, next time, please come in and see me.
Oh, gosh, I hope I haven't done the wrong thing. I absolutely know I've done the wrong thing.
You haven't done the wrong thing. He has done the wrong thing.
Those who can't afford an out-of-pocket expense have to make decisions about how many times they see their doctor. And usually it's the people who can least afford to put off healthcare that are forced with making that decision.
If a few people see their doctor less, that means the system as a whole becomes less expensive, doesn't it? That's a win-win, isn't it?
It's actually the opposite effect. People may go to emergency departments because they can't afford to go see their local doctor.
The more money we can spend on preventative care
and invest now to see that return. We've got one of the best healthcare systems in the world. What this is doing is putting that reputation at risk.
Asylum seekers. I'm as terrified of them as you are. But as we continue to lock them up, Lance Turnbull investigates how much we should continue to lock them up.
Refugees, asylum seekers, boat people. We all know that they're a big problem, but not all of us know what to do about them. Luckily for all of us, we needn't worry our pretty little heads about it because we have a special government department that does that for us, the Department of Immigration and Border Protection. The Minister for Immigration, and man who's pretty sure the female orgasm was made up by leftists to lower his self-esteem, Peter Dutton, recently said that the Fraser government, a Liberal government like his own, did make mistakes in bringing some people in the 1970s, and we're seeing that today. To discuss these comments and also some more different things, we have Stephanie Thebets, a spokesperson for the department.
Hello.
Oh, God. Miss Thebets, welcome to the program.
Please, Miss Thebets was my father. Call me Steph.
Very well. Now, Peter Dutton has said that the Fraser government were wrong to welcome so many refugees to Australia, suggesting that people travelling to conflict zones now are the children and grandchildren of people who settled here back in the 70s. Is there any evidence for that claim?
Of course there is. Under the Fraser government, many thousands of people came to Australia, and those people had many thousands of children. So, as you can see, numbers.
I can. Let's move to the new deal with the US to resettle the refugees currently imprisoned on our offshore detention centres.
I have to stop you there, Lance. We've actually rebranded the detention facilities on Nauru and Manus Island as concentration camps.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, the idea is that our prisoners should feel encouraged to concentrate on how naughty they've been. For instance, instead of bothering Australia with their legal right to seek asylum when fleeing war and persecution, they might, in the future, consider just staying where they are and dying where we don't have to look at them. As for Centre, it was just a little boring, so we went with a much more fun camp.
Right, I can see the thinking there. It's just, it sounds a little...
We also toyed with the idea of calling them forced labour camps because we wanted to force Labor to adopt our harsh punitive refugee policies.
Seems to have worked regardless. We've seen sexual assault, beating, self-harm, suicide attempts, and even self-immolation in these centres. Sorry, concentration camps. Assuming this deal to resettle these detainees in the US works out, will the facilities finally be closed for good?
It is our policy that we don't make comments regarding on-water matters.
Fair enough. It's safe to assume that the policy of boat turnbacks will continue?
Absolutely. This is about saving lives. We are absolutely committed to stopping people drowning in Australian waters. We would much prefer it if they would do the polite, respectful thing and die somewhere else.
So what are their options?
There are plenty of places to die, Lance. You know, quite a few countries are signatories to the UN Refugee Convention.
Oh, several, I imagine. But when the Navy push boats back out into the sea, surely that increases the risk of drowning twofold.
Oh, at least.
So how can you say you're concerned about them drowning?
We only turn back boats when it's safe to do so.
And when is that?
Always.
How do you know?
On water matters.
Satire. Now to move on to something that the refugees are also responsible for, asthma.
The Victorian government has announced $518 million for our ambulance system so we can avoid the kind of waiting times we saw with the freak asthma storms. But this reactionary spending is leaving many short of breath. Ventolin? I'm a Ventolot. Victoria Police have just been given $2 billion for large-scale recruitments, no asthma storm required. Meanwhile, paramedics have been lobbying for increased funding for years. Why did it take events like these for the government to agree?
Yeah, look, AMBOs have been asking for this money for years. Like you were saying, it's just so upsetting that it took to go into something so horrific like this for them to realise, oh yeah, maybe people on the front line actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah, look, and this is obviously, I mean, an unpredictable event in some senses, but I mean, a health system does have to be set up to deal with unpredictable crises.
Yeah, and I mean, the government isn't coughing up, sorry, had to do it, isn't coughing up money until after the fact. It's not like these ambulance officers are 12-year-olds begging their mums for like 20 bucks or something. They are professionals that need help. I mean, what is some of the conditions going to be? They can't spend it all on their Nintendos at once? Like,
well, it's a very dated joke.
But I mean, it does seem that both of these areas of spending are quite reactionary in a sense.
So the police spending is reactionary as well?
I mean, crime rates have been reported at being they're up by 10% this year, but that's actually notoriously hard to quantify as well. It could be a case of an asthma storm in a teacup.
So maybe if we put some money in before the crime happens, then we could avoid the crime.
Yeah, and maybe by listening to Ambos that we could avoid death.
That's an interesting theory. I mean, there's also a concern, though, that this money only addresses part of the problem, in that, you know, more spending on hospitals in general would actually allow them to treat and discharge patients sooner, which would mean that when an ambulance does rock up at a hospital, they're able to put that patient into the hospital's emergency department and into a bed so they get treatment.
Yeah, that plan sounds less like a plan and more like a vision board, though. I mean, it's just the government is just putting a Band-Aid over this problem anyway.
And that's the Ambos' jobs. You know what I mean? Haven't you done enough, Dandrews? Haven't you? Too much?
I'm going to put my cynical glasses on. Now, this is the second half of this government term. If they wanted to appear tough on crime, I'm not saying that they do, but this is what they would do, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Labor's constantly getting targeted for being soft on crime, and I mean, I think it's Liberal Matthew Guy who, at the moment, is saying that Victoria is living through a crime tsunami.
Someone that's not good at metaphors.
I think maybe the money's better spent to go to his metaphor department.
Yeah, it's like a sandwich. It has layers. But the government is forced to be fiscally responsible, so they're spending money a lot of the time on things that voters get, not necessarily things that are going to have a long-term benefit.
Yeah, so you're saying, like, in the final 2 years, money goes towards campaigning rather than governing.
Yeah, that is not how democracy should work.
Once again, the government fails to acknowledge the crime as a symptom, just like difficulty breathing when you spend millions of dollars incorrectly.
Well, now to some people who really need your money, the sponsors that we don't actually have, because this is all online. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. You're watching The Leak. Neoliberalism. I have no idea what it is, so I asked my most neoliberalist friend Lindsay Motteram to break it down for us.
A certain eccentric socialite and reality TV star recently done got the presidency of the America, based in large part on being a huge racist. based in large part on the promise that he'll bring back manufacturing jobs and wind back globalisation without starting a trade war with China. This is a drastic turn away from the traditional Republican dogma of recent history, neoliberal economics. But as Australians who listen to Treasurer Scott Morrison may know, Scott Morrison is horrible. And as they also may know, neoliberalism is alive and well in our government's policies. But how do the words neoliberal economics mean things in my ears? What should I brain them? Well, to understand that, I need to understand neoliberal economics. And to understand neoliberal economics, I first need to understand liberal economics. Liberal economics is the idea that bad things, like unemployment, happen because governments interfere with the economy by spending money. Therefore, if governments don't spend any money, even when there's a crisis, businesses will be encouraged to employ more people instead of just keeping the extra profits for themselves because of reason. And you've just realised why they're called the Liberal Party. The flaw with liberalism lies in the fact that we've already interfered with the economy. So it's too late to see whether this theory is true or not without potentially wasting millennia testing it just for the results to be all messed up because global warming has destroyed the Earth. For a while, Western governments accepted that liberalism wasn't getting results and moved to a slightly more interventionist approach, thus neoliberalism. The idea that, even though liberal economics had in the past created severe inequality, unacceptable externalities and catastrophic crises, it might just work this time. Neoliberals believe in things like austerity measures, small government and trickle-down economics. Infamous neoliberals include former US President and shadow of his own posthumous cult of personality, Ronald Reagan, and former UK Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, who is widely loved for her contributions to British society. The neoliberal trickle-down theory of wealth goes like this. When one pours bottle after bottle of cuvée de prestige over one's tower of crystal champagne coupe, even the carpet will become sodden eventually, and the same holds true for wealth. By showering the rich with tax cuts and incentives, they will eventually become so rich that their good fortune will burst from their silken seams and spill all over the next most wealthy people, and then the next most wealthy people, and so on. Like when someone vomits in a crowded train carriage, and then one by one that makes everybody else vomit too. Except the vomit is capitalism. This is distinct from socialism, where one person vomits more than everybody else and then their vomit is divided evenly amongst everyone. Under neoliberal governments across the Western world, inequality has skyrocketed. There have been economic crises in Europe and America, and the wealthiest few are richer than they've ever been. Neoliberalism is an economic ideology designed by the rich for the rich, justified with tenuous logic, based on a theory that can't be tested, and being promoted by people who know all of this perfectly well. They just like it better that way.
Wow. Thanks, Lindsay. Somehow I'm even more confused now.
Google is under fire once again, as millions of Android customers are, as we speak, getting their phones hacked. 13,000 users per day are unknowingly installing malware onto their phones from apps downloaded from third-party app stores. You see, apps that don't go through legitimate regulators like the Google Play Store are more vulnerable to being infected with viruses. After the dodgy apps are installed on a phone, the apps then download more apps that give hackers access to all the data on that user's Android system, like their email, photos, videos, documents, and even their Candy Crush scores.
What? Oh, everyone calm down. My Candy Crush scores are intact. You know what? It's fine. It's fine.
So, I mean, completely hypothetically, if I were to get hacked, because I know I have a lot of data I don't want people to see.
Oh, like that video you sent me of your colonoscopy, like that.
Or that time you sent me that email saying that all your passwords are MKBRLN because that's the cheat code to get to level 4 on Bubsy.
Or like all of your nudes.
Yes, all of these things I never want anyone to find out about.
So your secret's safe with us.
Completely secret, safe. Very
you had a parrot.
That one?
Oh,
Heavens.
yeah.
Anyway, let's just say I have a fair amount to hide. What happens if I get hacked into?
Well, I mean, there's a few things that can happen. One thing they call just ransom, right? So they take over your computer, and all of a sudden they're watching what you're watching online.
And then they look at Jacqueline looking at her notes. But if you are watching this online on YouTube or Facebook right now, hi hackers, I just stuffed up heaps.
Don't worry, Jacqueline, no one's watching. Then they can also install malware.
It's funny because it's true.
Then they can also install malware onto your computer. That then freezes all of your files. Then they can demand a fee from you to have all of that information back.
That actually happened to my dad.
Guys, the Candy Crush scores. Seriously, why is no one thinking about this?
Oh, but was it just a few years ago those iCloud hackers happened and they hacked into like Jennifer Lawrence and other celebrities and put their nudes online? Like there was no money involved then. It was just a real sick thing to do.
Yeah.
Sexy, but sick.
I mean, it's not just about celebrities or anything as well. I mean, there's actual real-life consequences to hacking, like abusive partners that try to hack into their exes' apps and everything so they can find out where they're hiding and go and find them.
Yeah, I didn't
It's
even
really
think
bad.
of that. That's terrifying.
How common are data breaches like that?
Well, an Australian Institute of Criminology survey found that 1 in 5 Australians had been victims of cybercrime.
So, should we all smash our computers? Spoiler, I've already smashed mine. Please say yes.
Well, maybe. Because, I mean, the other thing we haven't mentioned is, like, just plain old identity theft, which has been around the longest. That's obviously where hackers steal your credit card information and then use all that information to go buy themselves a new jet ski.
You know, this is pretty much making me want to go home and go full Anthony on all of my devices. It's still good.
It's still typed,
Yeah, it's
which is why we're so grateful to the federal government for shutting down our broadcast channel and ensuring from next year Channel 31 will be entirely online.
Mama needs a new jet ski.
That is the show for tonight and for season 3. A sincere, heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this show possible. Over 100 hardworking and talented volunteers and their families and support networks. Please thank our special guests, our wondrous host Jacqueline Mifsud, Pat McCaffrey and Lauren Bock. To Dr. Pam, who couldn't be with us tonight. She's not dead, she's just in Canada, so might as well be dead. Thank you, Channel 31. Fuck you, Malcolm Turnbull. I'm Anthony McCormack. Good night!